Hey Final Fantasy fans, just want to give you a heads up that this episode will contain spoilers from up through Chapter 2 of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, but not beyond that, as well as a few quick spoilers from Final Fantasies 16, 15, and 14. If you'd like, you can check the episode description for spoiler timestamps. And with that, welcome to the show! You can't chop a Moogle.
Yeah, Moogles. I have a love-hate relationship with them.
Like, I want to chop the Moogles.
Yeah.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Final Fantasy Files, where we discuss all things Final Fantasy from Kalm to Queen's Blood to Midgardsormr. My name is Jolie Hales.
And I'm Ernest DeLeon.
And today we're going to dive into our thoughts on Chapter 2 of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which includes the city of Kalm, the Grasslands, all the way through the fight with the big snake, Midgardsormr. So we'll be spoiling up through Chapter 2, but we will withhold spoilers from later in the game until we cover each of those chapters in detail. Because, I think as of this conversation, I'm currently in Chapter 8 of 14. And Ernest, where are you?
I just finished Chapter 3 and got into Chapter 4, but it is disgusting to even have to say this, but I have seen people literally posting spoilers in the titles of the YouTube videos,
No!
like the death of so-and-so.
What are you talking about? Nobody dies in this game.
I'm not going to say anything because obviously some people have not played the original 7 or this one, but it's really disgusting to see that kind of stuff. Like Square goes out of their way. They asked kindly for people not to be posting those kind of spoilers, and you still see like these degenerates doing it on YouTube. So
oh no, yes,
that.
It's funny because Square Enix sent out to all creators the guidelines of using their footage and talking about the game. And when you say that they kindly asked, like that is so literally, it was just like so nice.
Yes, it was like, please don't do this, right? So like every decent human being is trying to avoid this, but then you have those people.
Well, let's not be those people. So we're going to try and only spoil up through the end of Chapter 2 here. And I figured if you want to hear about our Chapter 1 thoughts, just go to our demo episode. And for this one, we'll be talking about Chapter 2, obviously, which is called A New Journey Begins. And it starts when Cloud wakes up at the hotel in Kalm. And it includes all of the Kalm exploration. It also includes the exploration of the Grasslands all the way through, like I mentioned before, the killing of Midgardsormr, the big serpent. And then Chapter 2 ends right as you arrive at the Mithril mine. So it's a pretty big chapter, and it's really interesting too, because you can tell that the developers wanted Chapter 2 to be an impressive chapter. Obviously the demo, Chapter 1, needed to be impressive because people were probably going to play that, a lot of people, before the game was released. So that was like a big impression maker. But Chapter 2 is also an impression maker because it's when you finally get to explore the world, right? And different towns and locations that you remember from the original game. So there was a lot hanging on this chapter, and I tried to reserve judgment. I actually didn't play the world exploration demo. Did you?
No, I did not play the second demo. I just played through the first one and then waited for the actual game to release.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I went into this unknowing how I was going to feel about it. And I will say, overall, I loved Chapter 2. I thought Kalm was an interesting location, and it was really fun to explore. There was a lot more there than I thought there would be. And then I also thought that the Grasslands exploration was top-notch for Final Fantasy, right? So the characters were also interesting. We love the characters. That's what we really love the most, probably, about 7 as Final Fantasy fans. But even the monsters were these great evolutions of their original game versions. Just overall, it was just a great chapter to me to really kick off the game after this demo chapter. And it really engaged me enough to start to fall in love with the game. So I give it 2 thumbs up. We'll just say that right from the start. But I won't say everything was perfect because nothing is ever completely perfect in the world of gaming, and we have some of that to discuss here as well. But yeah, overall, I just thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, same thing. Kalm was incredibly well designed. You know what it reminded me a lot of? In Fantasian, which is a game in...
Oh, that's the Apple game, right?
Apple Arcade.
Made by the same Final Fantasy game makers.
Done by Nobuo Uematsu and some of the... Yeah, right. They make these like scenes out of clay.
Okay.
And those are kind of the background. So you're working with like a real 3D model and they're like overlaying graphics and animation on top of it.
Wait, really? Like they use claymation backgrounds?
Not claymation, but like...
Or is it just styled like that?
No, it's like actual 3D models. And then they like, I guess, photograph them and then they lay the like animation over that.
Oh, that's cool.
It's a super interesting like take on gaming and I like it. And this city kind of reminded me of that more in that it felt more three-dimensional.
Yes.
Than a lot of other cities I've been in. I enjoyed it. And then I found something really cool in 2 that I got stuck on for hours.
Was it Queen's Blood?
It was Queen's Blood.
Yes.
I don't know if we've ever said it on this podcast, but I am a huge fan and player of Magic the Gathering. Now, I haven't played it much since before the pandemic, but before that, for years, I played nonstop. Every weekend, I got together with a commander pod. Like I was...
Wait, what's a commander pod? I haven't actually played Magic the Gathering. I have a lot of theater friends who are into it, but I've never actually played. So
there's a variant of the game called Commander.
Okay.
If you were playing a game of Dungeons and Dragons, we're getting way into nerd territory here.
This is definitely nerd zone, but that's okay. Nerds rule the world.
If you were playing D&D and you took a break, this was like a card game that was meant to be played in those breaks. It was like a quick thing.
Right.
However, today, by far the most popular format is this thing called Commander, which is a multiplayer format. Regardless, the point is it's this card game that I've been playing forever and ever. And anybody who knows what it is, you know what it is. Final Fantasy actually made their own physical card game similar to Magic the Gathering. And so like there's several of these games that are popular now where it's like this thing where it's a card game, but it's based on lane-based play. So exactly like Queen's Blood, you have lanes and then you have cards that you play to do all kinds of things. And of course, you know, Queen's Blood is a little bit different in how it plays. It's a lot more simplistic, if you ask me.
You think Queen's Blood is more simple?
Oh, far more simple. I mean, Magic the Gathering is the most complex game on the planet. There's actually an MIT research article written about this if anybody wants to go look for it. And so when I first saw the game, I was like, what is this? And then I went and played it. And after the first time I was hooked and I was like, okay, now I can't do anything else. Cause now I have like what is functionally a variant of like lane-based Magic inside this game. I am stuck here. So for hours I was playing Queen's Blood over and over and over. And I wasted so much time.
That's not a waste of time. It's part of the game. That's awesome.
And I promise you, once I beat it, I'm going to go back and play it some more. Now, I don't know if like there's some additional content around it. Like
there is.
With JRPGs, nothing is like throwaway. So there's probably a reason they introduced this game.
Yeah.
And if I had to guess, somewhere later in the game, this is going to become important.
Yeah, there's like a cutscene in chapter 4 if you get to a certain level and beat a certain opponent that seems to actually play into the regular story. It seems to. It's hard to know because it's very ambiguous and you can't really tell what's going on. But
so Final Fantasy has these history of minigames, right?
Oh, yeah. Do you remember Final Fantasy VIII? I was a huge Triple Triad fan.
Right.
Like, I played Triple Triad with everyone, and I got, like, super good at it and really enjoyed Triple Triad. And then they actually put Triple Triad in Final Fantasy XIV, and it was the greatest thing for those of us who played it in 8 because we got to play it again, and yeah, that's a really fun game. They did a great job on that.
Yeah, so in 11, they had a similar thing. It was actually a separate game entirely. It wasn't inside of 11, but like in the game launcher, you always had the option to launch either 11 or this thing called Tetramaster.
Really? There was like another thing you could launch?
It was another game. It was like a mini game that was outside of the game. And that's another one I got lost in too. But like I did play the Final Fantasy card game, the physical card game. I played it a couple of times.
Which is totally news to me that existed. Spencer said that they sent me some cards with one of my figurines and he threw them in the trash. And I was like, what?
Oh, man. Yeah, I remember that.
I can at least look at the art, you know? I remember that. Let me look at the pictures, you know? Like, I don't like card games that make me feel like I am doing homework or like writing a thesis paper to try to learn how to play them. To me, that's not relaxing. So I typically will avoid complex card games in real life. But when they're in a Final Fantasy, for some reason, I'm all in. You know?
Yeah, well, that's the thing, right? And so Queen's Blood, when I saw it, I said, oh, I got to play this. And I love it. It's like so awesome. And I know like, even though I've played it for hours and hours, because of where I am in the game and because of the cards that are available to you, I know that I haven't even scratched the surface of this thing yet.
Yeah, well, you're only in the beginning of chapter 4, so you have quite a bit.
But I noticed when I was like kind of poking around that you have the ability to custom build decks, which means
6 of them.
You're going to be acquiring a lot more cards. So I was like, wow, if they actually delivered on this the way I'm hoping they did, that may be more of a important game to me than the actual 7 Rebirth is.
Oh my gosh.
Just because of who I am. Like, I'm sure that there's some of our viewers are going to be like, yes, exactly. And there's going to be some of them that are like, what are you talking about? It's a stupid mini game. Those kind of games are really hard to design.
Yes.
And even harder to code because it requires a lot of like human logic.
Yeah.
I was already blown away just seeing what I saw, but knowing where it's going to go or could possibly go, I'm just hoping I'm not like hyping myself up for a big old letdown.
No, I think you're going to like it because I'm further in the game than you. And I've been trying to stay away from the internet most of the time as much as possible. But I have heard, because Spencer, my husband, is actually ahead of me in the game, and he has been on the internet quite a bit, and he says that Queen's Blood is like a cult following. Like, people are just getting really lost in it like you are, and you're just at the beginning.
It happened to me. I'm telling you, like, I got lost the other day playing the piano.
Yeah.
In Tifa's house, and that was fun. And I was there for like an hour or two just playing that stupid, I'm not even joking, I was playing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star on the thing.
That's why you're on chapter 4.
That's why I'm barely on chapter 4.
Right.
But then I got caught in Queen's Blood, like you said. And that's why I said we're going to have a whole segment on this because I
think it's great.
I was stuck.
I was actually kind of hoping you hated Queen's Blood because I thought that would make for a much more entertaining conversation. But I can relate, right? So I didn't play Magic the Gathering. I'm not huge into card games outside of the video game universe, but I was into Triple Triad, like I mentioned. And Queen's Blood for me was also incredibly fun. I think it's really fun. I was a little bit worried I wasn't going to be a fan, and that as a completionist, that was going to be detrimental to my play because I was going to have to play all these Queen's Blood games in order to, complete the chapters the way I want to complete them. But it turns out that it was super fun, right? So I think it's challenging. I think it's interesting. I think it's also possible to grasp. I like that they simplified it, that there's only 3 rows at least that you start out with and, so many columns.
Right.
And you can be strategic with your different cards and your earning. I just think it's really well designed, right?
It's like a CCG inside of a video game.
It's very creative.
I should probably be at chapter 5 or 6 by now, but I got stuck in that thing. As soon as my router was back up and I started playing again and I found Queen's Blood, I was just stuck.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, when I finished that night and I put it down, I was ready to go to bed. The next thing that came through my mind was like, okay, 7 Remake didn't really catch my eye the first time, but the second time, like, it hooked me.
You really liked it.
I get into 7 Rebirth, and Queen's Blood got me from like chapter 2. But what are they going to deliver in the 3rd installment? Like,
oh, I know.
How are they going to top this? Right? Like, you're coming out of the gate strong at the beginning of Rebirth, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, they might keep Queen's Blood around. Who knows? I'm curious about that, actually, if they'll continue it or if they'll try to do something totally different, or if they'll they'll probably just try to mix it up and make it like a different kind of rendition or something.
Yeah.
Depending on how popular it is.
I would hope they like do something really cool with it. Like, you have to play it against a boss.
Oh.
Right. And then the boss has like some insane like deck and strategy. I mean, the 7 story is the 7 story, right? We all know what it is from original 7, although I've forgotten most of it at this point. I think everybody knows that. So that's okay.
And it could be different. It seems like there are some differentiating factors.
And it's going to be a little bit different. But another thought that came to my mind is it's stupid, but I was like, what would be awesome is like to play Queen's Blood against Ultima.
I don't think that would be worth his time. I cannot see him.
No, but like that would be.
Plus, he's got 4 arms. I feel like there's some kind of advantage that he has.
Right, but that would be cool, like to have something like that where they like it's not just a mini game, but they incorporate it into like if you want to beat a certain boss or something, this boss is like a Queen's Blood champion or whatever, and you have to beat the person. And I realized for like there are some people who are like, no way.
Yeah.
I don't want that. I don't even want to touch the mini games. I'm sure there are people who saw that and ran, right? Like, I get it. But like for me, now I'm totally fine if like it ends up being like, what is his name? Chadwick or Chadley or whatever.
Chadley.
You do remember me, don't you?
This annoying kid.
The hell's this weirdo doing here?
If it's something like that where you go into like the virtual simulator and you get to play against all these like, it's like a walled off thing, but it's like its own adventure. I would love that too, but I would like it if they wove it into like the main game. Maybe like you got to play against Rufus Shinra at some point or something like that, right? Something cool, like not just a token.
Like with high stakes, like.
Yeah, but I'll just say they've come out strong in chapter 2. Like I'm super excited for this game and like just the card game, yes, but like the whole where is this 7 Rebirth going?
Yeah, I felt the same way.
I plan to do an entire episode of just Queen's Blood.
Okay, cool. We'll do it entire. Point. It's a fun game. It's actually really fun.
What would really make me laugh, but at the same time would be like ultra awesome, is if they introduce the ability to play other people online.
Oh.
Your deck versus somebody else's through the PlayStation servers.
Yeah.
That would be nuts. I guarantee you'd have like a good chunk of the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth population who would just be getting on to play that game against other people.
Oh, for sure.
I have a feeling that
I feel like that's coming.
This is kind of like their beta test to figure out like, hey, is this thing actually popular? And once they figure out that, hey, it's a hit with people, they're going to release it as a standalone minigame that you can play against other people online.
I would not be surprised.
I'm hoping, fingers crossed. Just don't put microtransactions in.
I was going to say, maybe it'll be a mobile game, but not with microtransactions.
I hope not.
Although, they're going to charge for like the cool cards.
But I could not imagine like going down to an iPhone. To me, that's just too small.
Well, I guess we'll see, because it sounds like it's gaining a lot of traction with people who are playing it, myself included, yourself included. So I don't think that this will be the end of Queen's Blood. I think there's more that'll be on the horizon.
Yeah, I want to see the detractors. I want to see their comments on it.
Yeah. Okay, so another thing that I loved about Chapter 2, and this isn't just Chapter 2, this is actually all the chapters, but it really stood out to me in Chapter 2 and in Chapter 1, the demo, but it's the incredible detail of all of the faces of the characters. It's really been brought up a few notches since Remake, and it makes a huge difference. So right at the beginning of Chapter 2, there's that whole like Tifa, Cloud conversations where they're not really seeing eye to eye, and there's some trust issues.
Where have you been this whole time? For 5 years.
I can't tell you that.
Which is all very interesting because it's character-based, and I find all that drama very fascinating in Final Fantasy games, but it's made so much better because the facial expressions of the characters is just so much better than it was in even Remake. And there's a few moments I remember from Remake where I was like, that was a cool moment facial expression-wise.
That was pretty cool.
But in this, it's just consistent. It's throughout. Like the graphics are just better.
Yeah.
In the faces, the designs, it looks really good. And it's like that with all the characters, like not just the main characters, but like the supporting roles have these incredibly animated faces, right? And it's a great upgrade.
Yeah, the facial expressions are awesome. I will say that like that whole drama or whatever you want to call it, I find it super cringy, but I realize that's just me. I'm sure most people see it and like they enjoy it or whatever, but I see it and I'm like, come on.
But what do you hate about it?
I can't put my finger on it. I think it's something like 2 people would not act like this.
Well, yeah. Okay. So there are moments where like Cloud and Tifa just suck at communicating. And you're like, just say words, like just talk, right? And they don't. So that part's annoying because it's like, okay, you guys are the worst communicators in the world. Like just hash it out and move on. But they can't do that because it's a scripted game with a certain track they're following. So they're doing the best they can with what they have to work with. And there is cringe involved in it, but it's also, I'd rather take the cringy like character moments than not have character moments at all, because they do add interesting elements of human connection that I think are really vital for a game like this.
Yeah. And speaking of that, like the more I work the Barret character, the more I love that character.
Yeah.
Because he was the one that like broke up the cringe, right? Like at a certain point they were having their thing and he's like, that's it, no more until this thing's done.
Yeah, they're having like their little
like cut it out
love triangle starting moment, and then Barrett's like, okay, none of this dating stuff.
Yeah, we have no time for this. We're on a mission. Like,
where the hell have you 2 been?
On a date, kind of.
What?
Well, that was the last one. At least till things calm down. Got that?
I love Barret. Like he's probably my favorite character at this point, just because like he's no nonsense. He's just like,
he's a great character.
Hey, cut it out.
Yeah,
right?
just like buck up and deal with this. Don't give me any drama. Barret is great.
Oh, no, you don't. That beds.
So as far as the story goes, Rebirth actually stays on track with the original game for the most part up through chapter 2, right? Except it obviously expands and lengthens it out quite a bit more because it's divided into 3 different games, right? And an example of that is Kalm is also this much more elaborate place in Rebirth than it was in the original game. So in the original game, I went back and looked at my gameplay from that. I mean, you pretty much only see the town from one angle outside of the inn. It kind of moves around a little bit in the city center, and there's a few NPCs walking around. You can go inside the inn, right? That whole Nibelheim flashback takes place when they're talking inside the inn. So you do go in there, and then you can go into a few shops. You can raid a few people's homes for treasures. I always love that in video games, how like you just walk into random people's homes and steal their treasures. You can do that in the original game in Kalm as well, but it's not really a very big town. It's actually pretty small. And I would say that actually the amount of gameplay time that you spend in Kalm in the original game, if you're a completionist and you talk to every single person, go into every single shop, not including the Nibelheim flashbacks, it's only about 10 minutes. That's it. And that's half of chapter 2 is Kalm. So it's a major expansion of what we've seen in the original game. And in Rebirth, this town is huge, right? And you were talking about how it's really in depth and it's big and it's layered. There's like so many layers. I actually got lost a few times.
Me too, yeah.
Especially at first, trying to figure out how to get to certain places and fill out the map as much as possible, right? There are people also all over the place. So it feels like this really full town, right? Because of all of these NPCs running around. And a lot of those NPCs offer side quests or even interesting background stories. There's some interesting dialogue.
Is it just me, or is Broden not doing so well?
There's some not interesting dialogue in some of them too.
It took me long enough, but I finally went and got myself a cat.
You know, if you want to hear something additional that can add to the story a little bit, you can find it in Kalm just by walking around.
Took a wrong turn the other day and wound up at the lookout on the cliff. It was crawling with bandits. Do not recommend.
And the whole Rebirth scene, though, of like Shinra coming to Kalm and then, you know, with the helicopters and forcing Cloud and his party underground and having to escape the town, that's all new to Rebirth. So none of that happened in 7 Original, which is interesting. In 7 Original, you leave Kalm on your own accord with nothing forcing you out. Although clearly the people, I'll say, the people in the helicopters in Rebirth are not very good at their jobs. Because, like, they must be totally blind. Like, is nobody looking around? Because there's multiple times where you're like right under the helicopters and nobody sees you.
Yeah, they're just hovering over. They're like, we're right under you, dude.
No, it's like, okay, well, you guys kind of suck. But I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would mess up the plot.
The city was awesome. Some of the NPCs were like, you know which one really got on my nerves?
Oh, no, which one?
The Crybaby.
The Queen's Blood player?
What do you want?
The Crybaby.
So, okay,
I could not stand that. It was like nails on a chalkboard.
I'm gonna throw up.
That's just me, because I'm like one of those people like, someone needs to slap this kid in the face and tell him like, get your life together.
Oh, what am I thinking? You look like you'd murder me.
Like, what is going on here?
But would you, okay, let me ask you a question though about the Crybaby. So I was on the fence at first too, and I'm like, I don't know what I think of this guy, because they're over actors, right?
People call me Crybaby Ned. Because the more tears I shed, the better I get at Queen's blood. Please play around with me.
So I'm already like biased against an NPC character that's played by an overactor. So I heard there was this overacting and I'm like, whatever.
Never underestimate a crybaby.
But let me ask you this. Would you prefer just a normal boring person, or do you like that they try to mix it up with these kind of ridiculous people that you play in Queen's Blood?
I don't know. Now that I think about it, it reminds me a lot. Like, again, I used to play like Magic with different people. And so like everybody has these different personalities, right? But like, I distinctly remember there being one individual who was, I don't know how to say this delicately. You knew how he would react emotionally to certain things.
Got it. Sensitive guy.
So if you
big heart, maybe.
Maybe, I don't know if that really is what it was, but the thing is, like, with a very skilled and like determined player who's not like an emotional player, they're going to close out the game as fast as they can.
Right.
But the thing with this guy was, because we all knew that like he was sort of like the Crybaby, but if we found ourselves like on the back foot, all we had to do was keep using delay tactics that would frustrate him, and it would end up causing him to make a mistake.
Oh my gosh.
And then we would close out the game on him.
Oh, that poor guy.
All the time.
I wonder how life is for that
But
guy.
I'm telling you, like, this is the same thing with poker, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you look at the Venn diagram of Magic players and like professional poker players,
yeah.
there's a lot of overlap there for a specific reason, right? And this is one of them.
So then how does that make you feel about this crybaby in the game now that you look back?
That's why he upset me, because that crybaby sitting down at any World Series of Poker table would get taken out round one.
Well, that he is like a level 1 player. He's not supposed to be any good. He's crappy.
Yes, and I realize, but I'm just saying, like, he annoyed me because, you know, I think now that you're making me psychoanalyze myself and this crybaby, I'm thinking that the reason I hated him so much is because I wanted a challenge, not a crybaby.
Okay.
Right?
You were already good at the game.
Well,
it sounds like you picked up on it pretty dang quick.
Really quick. Like within the first game, I was like, oh, I know exactly what this is and how to play it.
Okay, that's cool. It took me a little bit longer to kind of master it.
Now, the other one that you play later, I can't remember that NPC's name, where he's actually skilled at the game.
Uh-huh.
That one was a lot more interesting. I enjoyed that more. But the crybaby...
But you were like annoyed with the crybaby.
I was annoyed by the character, but I was annoyed by the voice. The voice was just like this annoying.
It was over the top.
Nails on chalkboard. Like,
you're back.
If I could have just hacked him with a Buster Sword, I would have just done it right there.
I know there have been multiple times where I've tried to pull out my Buster Sword and just hack somebody annoying, and it doesn't let you in so many instances.
Yeah.
I'm like, dang it.
It's like when I was trying to fight that guy in Nibelheim, the martial arts expert that trained Tifa.
Yeah.
And I'm like, let me at this guy. Let me at him. But he wouldn't let me.
Yeah, so I want to touch on what you're saying about the Crybaby Queen's Blood player, because it totally plays into something that I really liked about the game in a way. So, okay, first I want to set this up by saying, like, I thought Final Fantasy XVI was an amazing game in many ways, but one thing that it really lacked was levity. Like, there were very few moments in Final Fantasy XVI that were lighthearted.
Come on.
Or funny.
What's his name?
I mean, Sid.
You're not Sid, the other, the drunk uncle. What's his name?
Oh, Uncle Byron?
There you go, Uncle Byron. That's one of my favorite characters.
He's not really in it a whole lot. Like, there's a lot of scenes.
You're right. He's not in there a whole lot, but every time he is, it's gold.
Take care, Clive. I have many more tales of your father's exploits to share. And I cannot very well do that if you're dead. Again.
Uncle Byron was funny.
Like, every scene is gold.
Okay, I thought Sid was the funniest.
Oh, sod. I'd invite him over for a cup of tea if I didn't think he'd eat the dog.
And then I think Uncle Byron and Gav were next on my list for humor.
Mm-hmm.
There's a few quips here and there in the stories from them, but it's 80 hours of gameplay, right? So it's not enough levity to just take away this heavy feeling in Final Fantasy XVI. Now, they were going for this like Game of Thrones heaviness, it seems like, when they were creating the game, so it seems intentional. But for me, serious scenes stand out so much better when they're weighed up against levity. Like, if you have like lighthearted scenes, it makes the serious scenes that much more impactful. Whereas if you have everything on the same note, it doesn't play it as well as it could from an emotional standpoint, right?
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, when I watched the trailers, and I mentioned this to you, you could tell that the game was going to be lighthearted in a lot of ways and try to be funny. And I was hopeful that it was going to be a win in humor and not cringy goofy, right? And there is cringy goofy in this game.
I was like, the crybaby is cringy goofy.
Right.
For sure.
But like, I didn't know if it was going to win me over or not. So I love good humor. It's awesome when it's masterfully done, but it's, again, super awkward, super distracting when it falls flat and doesn't work. And I didn't know what to expect with Rebirth just based on the trailers. So I came into the game quite skeptical and came into chapter 2 quite skeptical, but hopeful at the same time. And then as I started to explore the town of Kalm, there were a lot of NPCs that you could tell they were trying to be funny, or the writers were trying to make them funny. Some lines worked. Some other lines, though, made me roll my eyes like hardcore and did not win me over at all, right? So I was still on the fence as I was exploring Kalm to see if like this was something I was going to jive with for the most part and see if the game would win me over. And you know, while a lot of the attempts at humor don't ace it for me throughout the game, through the 8 chapters I've played, I concluded during chapter 2, while exploring Kalm, that I love that the game just doesn't take itself too seriously. And the moment that I realized that I loved that was at a specific moment. And I don't know if you remember this or even saw it, but when you're exploring Kalm, you come across this Queen's Blood player woman who is surrounded by this wall of boxes and baskets. Did you see her?
No, I didn't run across her.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah, like I said, I don't think I even finished the actual Queen's Blood like side quest, like the numbered ones. I just got stuck playing against.
She was like hiding. Like I don't remember her even having.
I only played 2 people. I played the Crybaby and then this other one that was like an actually skilled player.
Oh, okay. There's another one you're missing out on that I can remember that's a kid voiced by an adult that drove me crazy.
A little birdie told me you can't get enough of that card game, Queen's Blood.
Yeah, it's true.
But at the same time, they tried to give her a personality, so I appreciated what they were trying to do with the writing. I just hate when adults voice children characters. Like it's ugh, to me. Okay, but this Queen's Blood player, she's sitting with her Queen's Blood board and she's surrounded by cardboard boxes, like all the 4 sides of her. Mm-hmm. And you can tell you just want to run and kick them all over, right? But she's talking about how glorious this stupid box wall around her is and how safe it makes her feel.
What a glorious wall, keeping us safe and secure. I could gaze at it all day.
And it's so over the top and stupid. And I was laughing so hard because obviously the whole point of this scene is to invite you to just go and destroy this wall that she loves so much in order to play her in Queen's Blood. And she says something to the effect of like, excuse me, you kind of destroyed the wall I love.
Excuse me. That was my barricade you just destroyed.
I don't know. The scene was funny, but the thing that made that scene so much funnier to me was the fact that it existed at all. Like the developers had deliberately put this stupid, interactive, ridiculous scene in the game, leaning so hard into this like obvious hilarity of how Cloud can interact with boxes and barrels and like all kinds of things, and they don't hurt him at all, but they go flying, you know? It was just so ridiculous. I laughed out loud, and that was the moment where I think I felt in on the joke. And so I concluded at that moment that I had permission not to take the game too seriously and to just kind of lean back and laugh at stupid crap like this. And
eventually I'll go back and find that individual, but
there's a lot more of this kind of stuff that is in different chapters after this that you'll see that kind of hits the same note. And while some of it is a little awkward, I would say that for the most part, the humor and the levity is refreshing.
You don't want to startle your prey.
Prey? You know we're not here to kill him, right?
And I'm glad they put it in, even if it isn't perfect.
You know, they are kind of similar.
Totally.
I don't know. For me, and I get it, like they have to take into account they have a very diverse audience with all different kinds of like viewpoints and stuff. But like for me, JRPGs are business. Like when you sit down and like you start to play, there's a mission, there's some calamity happening, and it's time to get to business and fix it. Like joking around, we don't have time for that. So like for me, I just, it doesn't work for me, but
so you don't like the humor?
Not really. Like, I don't want to make it sound like.
No, that's interesting because I thought in our last conversation that I was going to be the one that was harsh on the humor and you were going to be like all in because you loved Kate Sith in the original game, right? And he's like super dumb. Like,
well, that's why, because that's almost like a slapstick kind of thing.
Yeah. But so is like running over a bunch of boxes around some random girl.
I mean, that's true. But, you know, for some reason, like, certain humor is okay to me and others isn't. I think when it like detracts from advancing the story, you know, there's always going to be one stupid character.
Multiple, usually.
Kate Sith is one of my favorite characters, like for sure, in the original 7. But I think in that era, games were a little bit more cartoony back then.
Yeah.
And so they just felt a little more lighthearted, even though it was like, you know, 7 was a serious game.
Heavy themes.
Like in Final Fantasy, there's like some areas that are very serious. And like you said, some that are trying to be a little bit more humorous to try to, you know, get a balance in there.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's a good thing in general. But for some reason, like the humor, at least to me, comes at like the most inopportune times.
You just wait. You're in chapter 4 and there's a moment we have to talk about in chapter 4.
It reminds me of 15. Like in 15, a lot of the levity happened like when they were sitting around the campfire and like, yeah, that's like an area where that can happen. But could you imagine like they're in the middle of a boss fight and somebody starts cracking jokes? It's like, hey.
Well, they kind of do that in 15, though.
They do
Prompto's cracking jokes constantly during all the battles.
Well, yeah, that's how Ignis lost his eyes, because he was playing around instead of paying attention to what he was doing.
No, Ignis never plays around. He's perfect.
He's perfectly blind. But this is what I'm saying.
Stop hating on my Ignis.
And this is why I appreciate Barret so much in this game. Like, I keep going back to Barret. It's like, Barret is like the stereotypical and the prototypical leader. He's like business. And even when he gets excited, he like quickly reins himself in.
Pick a direction and start walking. Left, your left, right.
Well, that's humor, though. So you like that kind of humor. You don't like the slapstick. Okay, so...
Although when Kate Sith comes in this game, I'm interested to see what they do with that character. I really am.
Well...
Because in the trailer, he was already like awkward in the trailer.
Right,
So I was like, oh man, this is going to be great.
He's one of the things that worried me. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can handle this. Like, it's so over the top, right? But I've given myself permission to just accept the goofiness for the most part. Some of it I don't accept, and we'll talk about that as it comes.
Yeah.
But in chapter 2, I think it was fine. I will say, though, I am super excited that you didn't love some of the humor, because I really am excited for you to see other scenes.
But so far, like you said, Kalm was great. I enjoyed like the architecture of it. It was just amazing. I did not enjoy climbing and crawling and all this. You remember when the innkeeper was like, well, follow me and I'm going to take you to the inn.
Yeah.
And I'm over here like you said, they are blind. I'm walking like right above them,
like
right around
underneath.
them. Giant buster sword hanging off. Nobody noticed me walking through. It's like, okay, you're clearly your Ignis's buddies over here because you can't see what's going on.
Oh my God.
And Spencer's gonna love this.
I know full well.
And like I walk all the way into this inn, and then the innkeeper's like over here telling me, well, they have a history. He doesn't tell me what it is, but clearly they got abused at some point, right? And then lets us out through the sewer. And I was like, how many times in a Final Fantasy game has an innkeeper sent me out through the sewer?
It's so
like,
common.
Here we go
and then
again.
the helicopters are right there.
Right.
Like they could still, oh, what's that moving thing in the grasslands that's like huge and obvious?
I know. There's a dude with a giant rifle for an arm and a buster sword and like,
just blending right in.
Yeah, just cruising in there. And which made me laugh because it reminded me of the thing where you had to catch that chocobo.
Oh yeah.
And you're like doing like Metal Gear Solid type of gameplay or Hitman, like trying to creep up on this stupid bird. And I'm like, wow, like, so over here we do Metal Gear Solid. Over here we're walking right out in the open and nobody sees us.
Right underneath the helicopters.
This had to be two different complete writing units that like did this. Because by the way, that is one thing that I really appreciate about 7 Remake and Rebirth so far, is that there are so many different types of gameplay in there.
Yes.
Like I can literally pick out Metal Gear Solid, Tomb Raider, Magic the Gathering.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's all in there.
They like weaved it all together into this game.
Like everybody's favorites. And even in the combat itself, every character has completely different moves.
Devil May Cry.
And then there's the synergies.
Right, Bayonetta. Yes.
Yeah, it's a lot to grasp right up front, but it's really interesting and a lot of fun to play.
I'm impressed so far that they've got all these different like game styles in there, because these like you got to remember each one of these independently are their own franchise.
Yeah.
Right. Where developers focused on just this style of gameplay. And yes, we get it, right? Like if you have budget allocated against just a specific type of gameplay, it's obviously going to be deeper and more intense and better than the surface level that we can touch it in 7. But even if what I've seen so far is indicative of what they've done with all the other stuff, they've done a really good job.
I would agree. Now, what did you think about the open world or open-ish world, I'll say? It's not completely open, but what did you think about that? Because that was first introduced here in chapter 2 with the Grasslands.
Right. So I was really torn with that one.
Really?
Honestly.
How so?
I have a love-hate relationship with open world games.
Well, I know you love linear. Like, you're one of the few people who liked the hallway of Final Fantasy XIII's storytelling.
I wouldn't go so far as to say I loved it or anything like that, but like...
But Remake itself is pretty linear.
It's pretty linear, and so like I don't like totally open world games because...
Like 15?
Even 15 I don't consider a truly open world game like I would...
Oh, really?
An MMO. right?
Okay, touche.
The reason is because for me, at least, I get lost and
they're kind of overwhelming.
I don't know what I'm doing. And then I've figured out I wasted like 3 hours going in the completely wrong direction. And then I have to get myself back on track. That annoys me. But I do appreciate when it's like linear, but linear with like junctions that allow you to like explore that junction area and do whatever you want in it. But I don't like it where like, I'll give you an example. The swamps were one that really annoyed me because it took me forever to figure out just how to get around that area to get to the Midgardsormr.
Like the walls and like
the walls and like having to go through the water in a certain way. And like, yes, eventually
I don't like being lost either. I hate that.
Eventually I opened up the map and I figured it out, right? Okay, great.
Right.
But like I had to break down to open the map and look where I was going.
Got it.
And maybe that's indicative of like something that humans do in general when they don't want to ask for directions. Although I have a GPS, I don't care. But it is one of those, like, I was like, man, I don't like it when I don't know where I'm going.
Yeah.
And it's even worse when it takes me forever. And the reason it takes me forever is because I think I know where I'm going in an open world game, only to find out, no, I went the wrong way.
So then usually you strike me as somebody who likes to explore everything.
I do.
So are you kind of avoiding exploration in this, or are you exploring, but you just don't like how long it's taking because you get lost?
So I like exploring, but it's more like I like exploring with a purpose. Like, for example, if I go into a dungeon of whatever kind it is, like we've been in some buildings inside of this game, right? And like it's contained, you're in a contained space, you know where you are and you're exploring all the rooms and all that. I'm totally okay with that. Where I have the problem is like
just open exploration.
You go into this open world and like you're exploring, but then you find out you explored like yourself into a corner on the other end of the map.
Gotcha. So then,
and now you're like, man, now I got to go backtrack all the way back around because this happened to me. I was even on the Chocobo. I'm like hitting this wall and the gates and the wall. And I'm like, how the hell do I get around this thing?
Right.
Right. And then I'm like trying to go back up the thing I had climbed down. And of course I'm Tomb Raidering at like half speed but like, again, mechanics that intentionally slow you down.
Oh yeah. You don't like those.
Annoy me. Right. So this was one of those.
It seems like they're kind of alternating chapters. Like you'll have a linear chapter that'll go into an open-ish world chapter that'll go into a linear chapter that'll then go into...
And then like going and finding Titan Shrine, I was like, great, Breath of the Wild. Like here we have a Zelda inside of this game too. Like I'm seeing these games are like...
But did you do that? Did you? Because like with Chadley...
Yes, I went and did it.
You can check every single box until you hit 100% exploration. Did you do that?
I'm not like explicitly doing that, but I am finding these things just by way of exploring, right?
Okay.
So
but you're not making it an objective. So like in chapter 2, how many of those check boxes do you think, or what percentage do you think you did of Chadley's exploration?
I can't even tell you because I didn't go look.
Oh,
like, so this is one of those situations where I am behind you and Spencer significantly.
Well, Spencer hasn't been doing any of those. He's doing 100% main story only, which is hard for him because he's a completionist like me.
Yeah.
But since I'm the one hogging up the PS5 at night, that's the only way he can get any game time.
Yeah. So I'm doing a hybrid. It's like there are many Final Fantasies that I've played and I probably would not go back and replay.
Any in particular?
13. Unless we did it to cover for this show, right? Then obviously I would do that. But like, would I willingly want to just go play 13 again or 13-2 or 10-2 for that matter? No, right? So the thing I would appreciate about 7 so far, Remake and Rebirth, is I could absolutely see the replay value in the game.
Okay.
So like, I'm not too caught up on like, I've got 100% it the first time through. As a matter of fact, if it offers me the equivalent of a Final Fantasy mode, and I can go back through and 100% it with additional content, I may actually prefer to do it that way.
Okay.
But it's more like if I go into a dungeon, I'm looking around in all the little nooks and crannies.
Sure.
Right? To see what's there.
Sure. But you know it's going to bring you back to the main path. So you don't have to like wander off into no man's land or something.
Whereas when I go out into the grasslands, who knows where I'm going to end up.
Right.
Right. And
I mean, they give you a map.
I know, but I don't like looking at the map.
Okay.
And I know that that's like stupid in a way, but like part of me just wants to explore and like naturally find my way.
Okay.
But then that takes too long.
Gotcha.
So it's like I'm kind of caught in the middle of it.
So is it because you feel like you're in a hurry because you feel like you have to catch up to me?
That's part of it, but I wouldn't say like
I don't want you to feel that way. Like, take your time.
I just feel like I'm behind in general because like I couldn't play it for all these weeks for various reasons.
Right, because of the internet problems you had at home.
That and people were sick and I've been busy. And so I'm like, I'm now getting to it and I want to like catch up, not just to you all, but like everyone else who got this on day one, right, has been
more and more spoilers are going to be coming out.
Exactly. They're further along than I am. And I figure like if I can at least get through and get to the end of the game, even if I don't 100% it, the parts that I really like, I can go back and redo them.
Okay.
But like on my mainline Final Fantasy titles, I'm not really an open world type of person. I'm more of a linear person.
Well, that's fair. I guess I just have a different approach. I love Final Fantasy to the point of, I mean, it's the only series I play, right? I have to pick one series basically because I don't have enough time to do much. So I just dive in.
Yeah, because this is 80 hours, right? So like
it's
you
like
don't have the time to like play like
anything else. Yeah.
Yeah.
But because of that, like I don't want the game to end. And I
totally get that.
I like totally dive into the game and I want to do everything I can do within reason. If there's something that's like completely frustrating and stupid and I try it like 40 times, no, like a hard mode thing or something, you know?
Yeah, I'm not doing that.
I might make an exception there. But for the most part, like regular normal mode or whatever, I'm going to do 100%. So I'm the person going through Chadley's checklist and getting every single thing, right? And I thought, because I wasn't in a hurry at all, I thought that the open world aspect was like right down my alley, right? For me. It's not for everybody, but for me, it felt huge and it felt really diverse and it had like a ton to explore. And the landscapes I thought were totally beautiful. I thought the scenic areas were really interesting. I mean, even if you decide to kind of grind a bit in chapter 2 in the Grasslands, I didn't feel like I was grinding at all. I felt like I was exploring, like actually exploring, which was something that was so cool. You would come upon like a random shed and it would have a chest in it, you know, like there was just so much. And then the Chadley aspect, right, for those of us who are completionists, it then adds this sense of like accomplishment to exploration because you can literally see a checklist of all the important areas of exploration. So you can knock those out before you move on to another chapter, which I really appreciate because I love checklists and I don't want to leave that area until I feel like I've done all I can do, right? And seen all I can see. And there's a few different things you can explore in chapter 2, like surveying the life streams. Did you survey a life stream?
I surveyed the first one. And again, this is exactly like activating the towers in Zelda Breath of the Wild.
Well, the towers are in this too.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Sorry.
Like there's actual towers.
I did survey one live stream and then I went and activated one tower.
Okay.
And I went and found Titan's Shrine or whatever it was.
Did you find more than one Titan Shrine or did you just find the one?
I only found the one, but that's because like, again, I got lost in that area.
Okay, so with the Titan Shrines though, the more of those shrines that you find, the easier Titan is to fight in the simulator and earn that summon materia. So if you only did one, were you able to beat Titan and get the materia?
I haven't even fought him.
Oh, it'd probably be so hard.
Yeah.
Spencer tried to fight him with no shrines found, and he can't find a single person on the internet who's actually beat him successfully without any of the shrines. So I wonder if it's even possible. I'm sure somebody out there has done it. I probably couldn't do it.
Probably. I don't know. Like, and that's the other thing. Like, there's so many things to do, which is great in one sense. But again, like this is total like Breath of the, and by the way, I did not like Breath of the Wild. And I know there's a lot of people out there who are going to be like, oh, that's sacrilegious. But like these stupid RPGs where it's like, you got to do a billion things. The thing that really grates on me is like when weapons degrade over time and you have to go like,
I hate that.
Fix them. And oh man,
I hate that so much. But Final Fantasy doesn't typically do that, thank goodness.
They didn't on this one as far as I can tell. And that's one of the reasons that like when I played Breath of the Wild and I got to the point where I realized like you had to like repair weapons, I stopped playing it and
You never picked it up.
And I'm not going to because you as a developer are wasting my time.
I agree with that. I hate that. I hate anything punishing like that. You know, just punishing you for...
It's not even punishing, it's wasting my time. That's the problem, right?
Right, but that's how it's punishing you, right? Because the more time you spend in the game, the faster you lose your weapons. It's like...
I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, I hate that.
Exactly.
Okay, so you got a tower.
Yeah, I activated the one tower, yeah.
So you know that the towers are in there. And the towers allow you to see other things on the map that you can hit if you want.
Right.
So I like the towers because then it showed me all the other places I could go to check all the boxes, right? Like,
yeah.
And then the life streams, that's where you go and you take the scanner and you like scan the little live stream.
I did one of those, yep.
Yeah, and I thought they looked really beautiful. There's a few of them in chapter 2, and I like that the shiny owl leads you there.
Yeah, the little owl.
And you don't have to run to catch it, like it actually will like wait for you.
Right. By the way, there was a movie that came out, I'm guessing it was around the 1970s or 80s, that had to do with the Greek mythology. That's the little golden owl that flies around with Perseus. So, but I know that there's also like one in Harry Potter or something like that. I'm not a Harry Potter person.
Yeah,
so
I mean, it makes sense.
like, this is what I'm telling you. All the stuff they're weaving in is just like, wow.
From
like,
a bunch of different places.
These writers are just, they're pulling from everything, right? Like,
okay, so if you only went to one live stream, you probably didn't notice the music, the first 3 notes when you get to the live stream.
You didn't hear that?
Did you notice that?
no. I mean, I heard it obviously, but
Okay.
I didn't notice
So
it.
the first 3 notes, to anybody who is really familiar with 7 Original or the music from 7 Original, the first 3 notes when you get to any live stream are like soul piercing. And they carried that over for the live stream surveying, which I thought was really cool and compelling. But I mean, if you didn't notice, then it probably wasn't terribly compelling for you. So did you do any of the enemy intels where you have to check all the boxes? Did you meet the girl version of Chadley?
No, I didn't meet the girl version of Chadley. And like I said, in this one so far, I haven't actually like gone in and looked
Not a lot of exploration.
looked at Chadley's stuff.
Yeah.
But what I have done, and I do this anyway, like regardless of Chadley, is every single battle, if it's a new monster, I automatically use the assess material to figure out what its weaknesses are.
Yes.
So I know that's part of Chadley's like investigative whatever.
But it also feeds your enemy ability materia.
It does, but I'm doing it to find out what their weaknesses are, right? So like again, the difference between like the way I play the game and maybe, you know, someone who's action combat oriented, I could care less about the action combat.
Right.
What I want to understand is the weaknesses and how I can use like synergies to take advantage of it.
And that was one thing I missed in 16 was the elemental aspect. Like there was nothing that was like weak to fire, so you could hit it with fire. There was no like elemental damage, you know, which is, to me, it's so iconic in a Final Fantasy. I actually felt like there was a gap there with 16, but it's very much in Rebirth and Remake, which is nice because it should be there.
One of the things I loved when I started activating the, I don't know what it's called in.
Oh, the folios. The folio grid thing.
That thing, yeah.
Yeah.
The thing I enjoyed was like you imbue it on your weapon.
Yeah.
And you hit them with it. Like that to me is awesome.
Then you're striking and it's like a fire strike or like a blizzard strike.
You're not using like MP to cast a spell. It's like, for me, I was like, this is great. And I don't know how they did it. They have so many things in this game. The amount of levers that you can pull and tweak and turn, and like you can literally build the most like bespoke character of each one of them that, you know, is possible, which is 100% JRPG. And I think that might have been their strategy here. They're like, okay, here's what we're gonna do. This is an action combat game, but we're gonna lean into the customization of the character, the weapons. We'll give the JRPG players that, and the action combat players the combat itself. And people can just kind of pick where they want to fall on that spectrum. So like, I care nothing about the action combat, but I love tweaking all these levers and customizing the characters. So I'm sure that like everybody can find something in here that they enjoy.
Oh, totally. Yeah, I completely agree with you. There's just so many different elements in this high budget production, you know, game that I just don't know what kind of person would absolutely hate every aspect of it. Like somebody who's just got hate in their heart. I don't know. It's like, you know, like there's just so much to do. But so you never met the female Chadley. Okay, so there's a female kind of version of Chadley. And so Spencer, my husband, he can't stand Chadley in Remake at all. Like hates him.
Oh, he's annoying. He's annoying as all get at, but I'm like, but he serves my purposes. So
he's an AI, right? Like he's not supposed to be like a human person really. But in Rebirth, he's kind of grown on me more. I don't know. I kind of like Chadley, especially now that they've introduced the female counterpart of Chadley, because I do not like her. Like she's so obnoxious, and she makes Chadley look so much better because you're just like, oh, shut up. She talks to you when you do the enemy intel quests, they give you a checklist, like not only kill the enemy in a certain amount of time, but you have to stagger and pressure them. And every enemy staggers and pressures differently. Like some of them, you hit them with a certain elemental spell, but then other ones you have to avoid a certain combat move that they try to do to you, and then that staggers. And it's very interesting the way they have that.
Yeah.
But the female Chadley's in there, and she's not my favorite.
Your heroic victory over that vicious creature was a feast for the eyes.
I suppose it falls to me to make Mai's presence more tolerable.
How do you... Volume levels decreasing? Wait.
Now then.
Oh, and that's another thing I enjoyed about Barret in Remake. Like, yes, he had different guns you could pick and different abilities, but in this one, it loads a specific type of ammo that is meant for staggering as opposed to dealing damage.
Yeah.
When I found that out, I was like, oh, this is awesome. So all I would do is like start out the fight, get to Barret, build up his gauge, just put the stagger ammo on and just hammer them until they stagger, and then go to switch to Cloud and go to town.
Barrett's definitely one of my favorites.
He feels a lot more powerful in Rebirth than he did. Like, he was great in Remake, but like...
Well, who's your least favorite character to play with?
Probably Aerith.
Aerith is. Okay, see, my least favorite is probably Tifa. And I know some people love fighting with Tifa, but to me, her combo's so short, and I just haven't mastered her. Some people are really good with her. I'm not in that place.
I don't particularly like or hate her, and Aerith is kind of the same way. Like, I don't like or hate her. I think the only reason I'm putting Tifa a little bit above Aerith is Tifa is more of like
fast,
a hand-to-hand, like in their combat, versus Aerith, a range player. And like, when it comes to the combat side, I want to be like in the middle of it. Like, I think like Tifa and Cloud, I like a lot because they're up against the enemy.
Yeah, I like that too.
And the other two are more, ranged players, which...
I just get hurt a lot more when I'm Tifa.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm clearly playing her wrong.
Well, yeah, so like if you're playing Cloud or her, you have to really pay attention to like when they're charging abilities or when they're about to drop AoEs.
Yep.
Because you were obviously in the middle of it, versus like Aerith and Barret are probably never going to get hit by those things. But yeah, I would say like Aerith is probably my least favorite, although I know, like, especially in Remake, when you got her built up to a certain point, her magic was really powerful.
Yeah, no, she can be really strong. Do you know who else can be really strong is Red?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember in 7, like, if you built him up right, like, he was probably your strongest character.
Yeah, he's really tough.
Yeah.
But going back to Chadley, did you... Oh, you were playing on a handheld device, so this may not have been the same. You know how Chadley will talk to you on your little...
Yes, on the little communicator
thing that you're holding, that you scan, on the screen. So when you're playing with a normal, like, PS5 controller, you have the option of having the audio come out of the controller only.
Unfortunately, they are a notoriously difficult creature to raise in captivity.
Did you have any of that?
No, because I was playing on the...
You're playing on the... Okay.
And I have the earbuds plugged in because I don't want to wake people up.
That makes sense. So you didn't see that. So
no.
I thought it was kind of cool. I had to turn it off, though, because I'm recording all my gameplay for B-roll for this thing. And I knew it was probably just recording complete silence during those moments. So I'm like, okay, I got to turn this off. But that was kind of fun that they tried to utilize, the tools that they have and diversify it a bit.
Yeah, even on my PS5, I turn off that speaker on there. I turn off the vibration stuff. Like, I can't stand that stuff. I'll turn it on in certain games where, like, there's a competitive advantage to it. Like in Destiny 2, like the FPS game, there is a competitive advantage to having that thing on.
Yeah, there's no competitive advantage here. It's just aesthetic.
Yeah, for this, no. So I turn it off. I don't want any of that stuff.
That makes sense. And then I will say also the enemies. So I went back and I looked at the enemies and kind of refreshed my memories from original 7. So the enemies in the Grasslands, like the elephant creatures, the haste birds that peck you, the little like onion grass kind of creatures.
Mandrogoras.
Yes, those, exactly.
Yep.
Also the cute and cuddly squirrels that like have a death wish for you. I love those. Another thing that you don't take too seriously. So all of those enemies are just these up-res versions, like redesigns of the enemies from the original, which I thought was really cool because I thought they were reimagined really effectively. And it was fun to see what I remember from the original game. They stayed true while adding additional like new elements for this modern era, right? Though it was interesting that some of the grassland enemies from the original game were not in these grasslands. Like there was like a hybrid motorcycle enemy that appeared a whole bunch in the original game Grasslands. It doesn't appear here. And then there's some Machina type stuff that didn't as well. And it makes sense that they don't because it's the Grasslands. Like, it'd be kind of out of place. So it makes sense to me that they pulled those out, and I like that. But yeah, overall for me, the Grasslands, there's just a lot to do in an open space. And for somebody like me who likes to do every single thing, check every box, it wasn't overwhelming. It was more of the game style that I like. And I love that they alternate kind of a open-ish world exploration chapter for those who want to use it, and then they go into a linear chapter and vice versa, keep going. Did you probably didn't play the Moogle game either, did you?
No, and one of the things I wanted to kind of point out was it moving to chapter 3. So remember, I got lost in the swamp things, and then
I got a little lost around there too.
It wasn't like I intentionally said, let me get out of chapter 2 and move on to chapter 3. It's just that like at some point I was in chapter 3. So I guess had I known where that line was, I might have backtracked and gone and done some more stuff.
It tells you the quest and like the distance to the main story quest, so you can avoid it.
I don't know. Maybe I was misinterpreting the little...
Yeah, the little blue questy thing. Yeah. Just avoid that if you don't want to advance the story.
I think that's what happened.
You can go back, though, and do all that stuff again once you're in chapter 4 if you want to. But it doesn't sound like that's really your thing.
Yeah, I think what happened is I was like just trying to follow that blue thing over and over. And it was literally advancing me through the storyline.
That makes sense.
And so I ended up in 3. And I was like, okay, well, maybe that's all there was in 2. Clearly, there was a lot more that I missed.
Yeah, so another thing about the Grasslands area, I mean, obviously the original game is much less detailed graphically due to technical restrictions of the time, right? But it does have like grassy landscapes, hills, and beaches, like the Grasslands of Rebirth. Right? So they stayed true there. And story-wise in the original game, the party is told to get Chocobos from Chocobill's ranch in order to kind of safely cross the marsh, right? And avoid Midgardsormr. But it's interesting, though, because in 7, he's called Midgardsormr or Zolom. Did you know that?
Don't remember, but I wouldn't doubt it.
In Rebirth, it's Midgardsormr instead of Midgardsormr, which is interesting. And I prefer the change because any Final Fantasy fans will probably recognize the name Midgardsormr much more as being this reoccurring serpent creature across the Final Fantasy series, right? So
even more than that, Norse mythology.
Right.
Where it comes from.
Mythology, right? So in Final Fantasy VI, Ernest, your favorite, right? Midgardsormr is an esper or a summon. Usually you get it in the Yeti's cave or whatever. And then in 11... I didn't play 11, but I read this. Midgardsormr doesn't appear in the game, but it's the name of one of the servers. So it pays homage.
That's true.
And then in 14, Midgardsormr actually has a pretty large role as being this like first dragon on Earth who fathered all the other dragons across the world. He's like the first one who came here from like another planet or something. And you get him also as a mount. Everybody gets him as a mount. And you talk to his essence on like a number of occasions. So he's like a big part of 14. And then in 15, he's a level 54 hunt. And then I think he also appears in Final Fantasy Tactics and a few obscure Final Fantasies as well, but he's almost always some kind of serpent, some kind of dragon or reptile or whatever. So other than the slight name change from 7 Original to Rebirth, the other difference is that in the original game, you don't actually have to defeat him in order to cross the marsh, although he will engage your party if you're not on a chocobo going through that area, and he's really hard to defeat if you try to fight him. And I don't think I ever was able to kill him, at least not in the early levels of the game, right? And so I ended up encountering him and then having to flee from the battle. And then before you get to the Mithril Mines in Original 7, that's when you do discover Midgardsormr, or Midgardsormr as they call him. You see his corpse stabbed through and wrapped around that stake, the same way you do in Rebirth after he dies, right? But in this, you didn't contribute to like fighting him and putting him in that state. You just speculate when you see that if it was Sephiroth who did it. So slightly different, kind of interesting to compare to the original game. And then the whole like Cloud seeing Sephiroth and then being pulled into the water by the serpent and then ultimately rescued by Sephiroth. I mean, none of that is in the original game. So those are interesting additions for Rebirth. And then as far as the fight goes with Midgardsormr, I did not do very well, I'll be honest with you. I didn't die, but I think one of my characters got knocked out and I had to revive them. But I didn't feel like I had rocked that battle at all. I felt like I was still getting used to the different options and the different controls, what the characters do, the different weapons, the spells, all of that kind of thing. The shortcut synergy abilities. I now understand more how those abilities kind of work, and I'm a lot better at it, but I don't know how you did. I did not ace that battle.
Well, you got to remember, I put it in story mode. So
oh, that's right. You're not even playing
so it was not that hard for me. It was actually pretty easy.
Because it's auto fighting.
Yeah, there's a lot of auto fighting going on. Like I control Cloud or I control Barret, but like, yeah, that fight was super interesting. One thing I'll call out is like, if you have Netflix, there's a series on there called Ragnarok.
Okay.
And it's like a retelling of the Norse mythology,
okay,
right? But set in like a modern day context. I think it's in Norwegian and it's got English subtitles. And obviously Midgardsormr plays a big part of that. But like, so if you haven't seen that thing on Netflix, it's pretty good.
I'll have to check it out. Interesting.
The one thing I will say that like annoyed me about that scenario, and I know it was part of the script or whatever, was like, I'm on these birds and it's because someone told me if you go on these chocobos, this thing won't bother you.
Oh yeah, and then it did.
And then we end up stepping on it. and what happens? The chocobos go running off and abandon us there. And I was like, really? That was low as far as I was concerned.
That was a low move.
They just ran. Like they left us there to be lunch for this thing.
I'm out. I'm not getting eaten by a giant snake.
But yeah, the cut scene, like you said, right, that kind of brought us to the end of the chapter, was pretty awesome. And then I love like Cloud's little snippet after that. Like, I knew he was powerful, but
I knew he was strong, but still.
Like one swipe and that thing's stuck, like impaled on the spire. It's like, wow. It's slowly giving the player, like especially someone who's never played any of these before, hints as to like how powerful Sephiroth actually is.
Really interesting to see what they're going to do with Sephiroth. I secretly want him to be a good guy. And I want this to be just like all a misunderstanding.
Well, I mean, it sort of is. And he sort of is a good guy, but not really. Like
I know, but I don't know which way the writers are going to take this whole like remade version with him, you know?
I have a feeling the reason they named it like Remake and then went to Rebirth is because they're going to change it.
Yeah.
Right? And they're going to give it more depth. And I think that the entire team at Square Enix working on this knows how important 7 is to like the player
the whole
base
franchise, frankly.
They're not going to screw it up.
Well, we'll see.
They're going to deliver. It may not be what everybody wants, but there will be a portion of the player base that will be like, yes, I've been waiting for this for 20 something years. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
We'll see. What did you think of the character Broden? Do you remember Broden?
That was the innkeeper, right?
Yes, the innkeeper at Kalm.
I'm Broden, the owner of this inn.
So that guy gave me weird vibes.
Oh, really? Okay.
As a matter of fact, like...
Did you talk to him enough to hear like his story?
No. It was actually the interaction at the end where like he put you in the underground sewer to get you out.
Yeah.
The tunnel in the basement will take you outside of town. Leave now and they won't catch you.
That last interaction with him where he's like, you know, we have a history with Shinra and, you know, blah, 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 but you better get out of here before I change my mind.
Why are you doing this? Could have just turned us in.
Yeah, I could have. But this town and I have a history with Shinra. Who knows? Maybe this will turn out to be the worst decision I've ever made. So before I change my mind, you'd better get going.
It almost gave me vibes like he was going to double cross us.
Okay.
At some point. Like, I don't know if that, you know, ever happens or whatever the case is, but he just came across as like a abused and potentially volatile character.
No, that makes sense. I can see how you would read that. So Broden, the innkeeper character, doesn't exist in Final Fantasy VII. So he's completely created for Rebirth. And if you talk to him enough, you get the story that he's an ex-soldier who is starting to suffer from cellular degradation.
Headaches and dizziness, huh? Anything else?
Sometimes I hear voices, I guess, calling for me, urging me to go somewhere.
And basically, they're implying that he's turning into one of those black-robed reunion guys.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Whatever they did to him, though, has something to do with his condition.
And I actually thought he was super interesting. I talked to him at every chance that I could get because I found him kind of fascinating. Because they keep hinting that Cloud is going to go through this change and turn into one of those guys. And so seeing Broden at that stage where he's like starting to get really ill is really interesting.
What is this terrible scent? It's reminiscent of Hojo's lab.
It's time. Time to go. To leave.
You okay?
It's just the degradation. Every soldier's gotta make their peace with it. Now you know why I can't see any old doctor. You're a soldier too, aren't you?
Ex-soldier, actually.
Didn't mean to scare you. The symptoms aren't always the same. And who knows? You might be one of the lucky ones.
And I also will say the actor who plays Broden is very good.
Just don't take your youth for granted. All right? You only get one shot at life, and you can't let Shinra take it from you. You can't let them win.
And the acting in Rebirth, okay, I'm going to say it. The acting in Rebirth is a step up from the acting in Remake. Mm-hmm. Okay, so like Cloud and Barret, in my opinion, are still great. I liked them in Remake. I like them in Rebirth a lot. But in Rebirth, a lot of the side characters are pretty well acted. So like Chocobo, who also has amazing facial animation, like they all do, right?
The name's Bill, and you can count on me for a lift anytime. Except today, that is. Afraid the old bute's pulled up lame. Sorry about that.
The two kids that work at the Chocobo Ranch, I think it's Chocobilly, and I can't remember the girl's name. Like, they're pretty good.
But I can see you're in a bind, so I'll bump you up the list. For a price, of course.
And, like, the farmer is good. There's a lot of subpar NPC voice acting, but whatever, you know, it is what it is.
Hello, and welcome to my humble shop.
But while this game, I would say, doesn't reach the caliber of Final Fantasy XVI or even 14 when it comes to voice performances, as far as, like, the craft goes, that doesn't mean that you can't like voices better than other voices. But as far as, like, actually hitting an authenticity note that's considered quality performance acting, it's better than Remake. Rebirth is better than Remake. So that's enough of a win for me, even though, you know, I'll always have a spot in my heart for 16 and even 14 just because the performances are just a new level. But I was glad to see an improvement from the predecessor.
I'm going to accompany you.
Yeah, it's definitely better. I mean, it's obvious that it's better. Like, but I think that there was a definite impact on a lot of these games due to the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And people having to work remotely. And not only did it delay games, I think it impacted the quality of various aspects of these games. I also think that's why some things ended up on cutting room floors faster than other times because
maybe so
liquidity kind of dried up in the market, all that kind of stuff. But I feel like Rebirth was towards the tail end, if you want to call it that, of the pandemic. So it had more of the interactive working on it, so to speak. And I feel like the next one that comes out is going to be like the pinnacle, not just because it's the end, but because we went from a situation where people had horrible working conditions to slightly better to optimal, right? And so like the quality should in general increase every single one of those till we get to the end.
Yeah. There are a few things I'll just rapid fire that I did not like in chapter 2 though. Did you have any that like jumped out at you before I go on my rant of like my list?
You know, not so many in chapter 2, but in chapter 3, I definitely had some.
There's a couple that jump out at me in chapter 3, and I bet one of them is exactly the same as yours. But yeah, okay, so chapter 2, overall, pretty amazing chapter, but there were a few things that were unideal. Small things, like I had to look up on the internet how to change your frontline party members. Like, they make you go to the combat settings instead of the party menu, and you're almost always in Final Fantasies, you go to the party menu to change your party. But so I had to look that up. Not a big deal, especially since once you do it right the first time, you don't have to look it up again. It's fine. It just seemed counterintuitive. I was like, But again, you know, I'm being nitpicky here. And then you probably didn't notice this, but there's a whole like proto relic side quest you can do as part of like Chadley's exploration that actually gives you more backstory to Broden. And there is this like purple warp graphic after getting the proto relic, and it lasts for like 10 minutes. Like, I swear, okay, it's not 10 minutes long, but it's like, and it just sits on this graphic so long. And I was like, is my game frozen? Like, and it happens like twice, I think, in chapter 2. And I thought my game was frozen. So I don't know if it was like a load screen that just lasted forever. I don't know, but it was long.
Never saw it.
Small thing, totally jumped out at me. And then also, can we have more than 10 save slots, please? Like, I want to go back
this
and like...
is something like, okay, I'm not far enough along for that to matter to me yet, but this is something that I was upset about with 7 Remake.
Like, give us 100. They don't take a lot of data.
What's the point? It doesn't cost you any more money to add more of these save slots. Like, I'm trying to figure out what the purpose is to limiting it to 10.
Right.
Like, what's the reason behind it? Like, it can't be a money reason. Like, it is like these are bits.
I don't know. They have like this auto save, and they're very forgiving. Like, if you lose a battle, you can start the battle over, you know, or go back to like a checkpoint or whatever. So I get that all that's there. But the reason I want more save points is because there are so many scenes that actually change in the cutscenes and the results based on either how well you do with something or like how much rapport you've built up with some of the other characters. And I want to go back and like play those same scenes with the different scenarios and see them all instead of just like looking them up on YouTube. But you can't really do that. You have to play the whole game again and change it up because the 10 save slots is just not enough. I want 100.
That does bring up an oddity to me. The whole like changing your relationship with people.
Okay.
Because like in 11, there was this concept of fame. And if you did a lot of quests for the people of various like towns and whatever,
yes,
it would either increase or decrease your fame. And based on the fame level, you would get like, for example, if you went to the weapon shop, the weapons would be cheaper or the supplies would be cheaper, or an NPC might offer you a spell that you wouldn't otherwise be offered if you didn't have the right fame level. And so like, even in that one, I was like, this is so annoying.
So you don't like that?
It's not that I don't like the mechanic. The problem is like, at least in 11, I don't know about in this game. In 11, you had to put so much effort to raise the fame. Like,
oh, wow. Okay.
Mind you, this is grinding original Japanese
right.
MMOs.
This is torture days of Final Fantasy.
It could take you weeks in real life to get your fame maxed in a specific zone.
Yeah.
So that you could be able to not only get cheaper things, but get certain items that you needed to advance like a side quest.
Yeah.
And that was what was annoying. And when it was saying like, oh yeah, well, depending on how you respond, I increased or decreased my thing with Tifa or Aerith. I can't remember.
Well, here's the thing that's the worst about that, though, is the timer.
It was annoying.
It barely gives you enough time to read them. And like, you know, some of them are tongue in cheek, so you have to interpret what they're talking about, you know, and I picked the wrong ones too. The nice thing is that they're much more forgiving. It sounds like in Rebirth than they were in 11. Like, it's pretty easy to get rapport with people. Like, I have green smiley faces with all of my party right now in chapter 8. So it's not terribly hard, but like, I hate countdown rush you timers. I don't like them. I don't like ticking clocks. Don't do that to me. I'm here to explore and have fun. I don't want to be rushed. It stresses me out.
I know, like you rush people through that, but then you put the damn vacuum cleaners and the Tomb Raider stuff. It's like, what?
Right. It's like, wait a minute.
Can you not balance this better?
I just hate timers. And there's a timer issue coming up in chapter 4 that you may not even see, but it is worse. Like, we'll talk about it. And anybody who's played any of like the side quests in chapter 4 knows exactly what I'm talking about. The timer sucks.
That brings up another thing that I found in that Titans thing. You remember how you had to hit the sequence in time around the circle?
Yeah, like in the right time, the right buttons.
It reminded me, so like there was this JRPG called Lost Odyssey. And I'm pretty sure it was a Square Enix title as well. And it had this mechanic where this circle would kind of zoom down and you had to like...
Oh, like hit it right when it...
It was a time thing and you hit it at the right time in order for you to be able to pull off the attack or whatever.
Kind of like the lifestream triangle thing, but probably harder.
Maybe it is the lifestream thing I'm thinking about and not the Titan. I know the Titan thing was like...
The Titan one is like a round circle and you had to hit it the right time.
Yeah, maybe it wasn't that one. There was another one where like something was shrinking and you had...
It's the lifestream.
The lifestream thing. That It reminded me of Lost Odyssey.
Okay.
Which again is like... You're pulling in all of these games like, okay, yes, it's possible that you like randomly came up with this by yourself.
Most likely not.
But the fact that it's almost exactly like another...
No, all these developers are gamers. Like, they know.
Just the amount of things they're weaving into this thing, it's amazing.
Yeah, I agree. I do have a question for you, though. It's kind of random. Just in general, what do you think of Moogles?
Yeah, Moogles. I have another like love-hate relationship with them. So like,
I think most people do.
In my opinion, if you've played 11, your opinion of Moogles is going to be different than anybody else's.
Okay, well, what are they like in 11? They're in 14 too. I'm curious.
In 11, they are like annoying.
Okay.
And they either give you things, and then the other thing they do is they tend what's called your Mog house. So like basically, they're your personal assistant. That's what they are in 11. But they're annoying. Like annoying is all get out.
Okay.
So I think they're okay.
Like some people see a Moogle and they're like, oh, it's a Moogle. Yay.
No, I'm not like, oh, this cuddly thing. No, they were just so chatty. They wouldn't shut up. And like, you're trying to hurry up and like advance through all these menus and the thing won't shut up.
Yeah.
But again, that's from 11. I don't know that like that permeates the other mainline titles like that.
It sounds like it does in a lot of ways. The annoying part. I mean, 16, there's like one Moogle, right? And it's at the hunt board.
Right.
And he's probably the least intrusive as far as Moogles go in games, right? So he's like, for me, the most tolerable.
Yeah, but he won't stop laughing. He reminds me of the stupid dog from Duck Hunt that would laugh at you when you missed the duck.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of him in 16. 14, you have a few of them scattered around as like mail carriers, and they're fine.
Exactly. They're assistants.
Yeah, they're like assistants. But then you go to like a Moogle land in the sky or whatever, and they're obnoxious. I don't like them. They're annoying as heck. So there's Moogles in Rebirth too, and I know some people think, oh, cute, but they're weird and annoying. And you have to play this game where you wrangle them up. And the game gets harder with every chapter that you decide to play this game in. And there's like more obstacles. And it's fine, I guess, in the first one. But I'm just not a Moogle fan. I think they're annoying.
Me either. I mean,
like Kupo.
It's like little cartoons. Blech.
yeah, I don't hate them, but I'm definitely not a fan of them.
Yeah.
Like if they left them out of the game, I would be perfectly fine with it.
I'm a Chocobo fan. I'm not a Moogle person.
I love Chocobos. Chocobos, I'm sad if they're not there.
Yeah, I like Chocobos.
What I never want to see again in a Final Fantasy game, but I already know they're going to, because I saw the stuff online, the damn Tonberries.
Yeah, that's the thing.
I hate those things.
We'll have some things to talk about.
I know they're coming.
They're coming to 16 Rising Tides too, like the DLC.
I think it was like Spencer, like, yeah, because
and they're creepy.
They kill you with a butter knife.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, they got them beady little eyes. And then like,
they don't have beady eyes most of the time. They're usually like really cute. It's in 11, they're like creepy looking.
Oh yeah, they're creepy with beady eyes, but like in 11, they link with each other very easily. So like,
oh yeah.
So like if you aggravate one,
they all go after you.
Then you're getting rolled by the tribe.
Yes.
The fact that I know that they're coming, like that annoys me already, and I haven't even gotten there.
Yeah, but Tonberries are fun. Like when you beat them, it's like so satisfying.
Oh,
whereas
gratifying,
you can't chop a Moogle. Like I want to chop the Moogles.
Yeah.
Like they're so obnoxious. Did you know that the big thing that Kate Sith rides around on is supposed to be a fat Moogle?
Yes, I know that. Yeah.
It doesn't look anything like the other Moogles. Why is it? What?
You know what it reminds me of?
Stupid?
No, well, I mean, yeah, but the first time I saw it, I thought it was like a Moogle that had died and they stuffed it.
Yeah, like a stuffed animal, maybe. Yeah.
Like a taxidermy
Maybe
Moogle.
that's what it is.
And I was like, this is so cool. He's riding around on like a dead Moogle.
He has a zipper on the back, doesn't he?
I actually have a Tonberry like bedside lamp.
I thought you hate them. Why do you have a lamp of them?
I hate them, but I found this thing, and I don't even know where I got it. I was like at a store, and it was like $1. It's holding a lantern, and so the lantern lights up, but then its little eyes, also the light shines through.
Is it 11 version?
No, because
or is it the cute and cuddly one?
It's a cute and cuddly one, because
those are more common.
In 11, they have these black beady eyes.
Yeah, they're terrifying.
Yeah, this one doesn't. This one has the yellow eyes.
Yeah, those are the cute ones that are also terrifying.
I've never taken it out of the box ever. Like,
oh, take it out.
Again, I found it somewhere and it was like $1 or $2, and I was like, well, I'm gonna take it for that price.
For that price, for sure. I'd probably get it too, even though I don't know that I'd sleep well after that.
I hate those things. So like, I know they're coming, and I'm like, man, why do you have to keep bringing back the Tonberries?
Well, no, it's classic. It's like the Cactuars and the Chocobos. You kind of have to have them in there.
Yeah.
You know, that's why it was weird. It was actually blatantly noticeable in 16 that there weren't any Tonberries, right? But now there's going to be in the DLC. So as much, it's love-hate for me. I hate them, but I love killing them.
What's even weirder about 16 is like, as far as I'm concerned, the Tonberries are almost like their own little death cult, right?
Oh, totally.
And so like when you had this cult that was worshiping Ultima, that seemed like the perfect place for the Tonberries.
Oh, that's a good point.
They would have been the perfect death cult, like literally killing themselves but then, it didn't happen and now they're going to bring them. And by the way, this is another reason, like, I'm trying to hurry to catch up to y'all. It's not just because I'm trying to catch you. It's because, like, now they're starting to drop stuff at such a pace.
It's like, how do we even?
Like, I do want to go back and cover like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And it's like,
it's going to be a while.
We're never going to be able to get to that because of the pace they're dropping the new ones. It's like,
it's a good problem to have.
And I know some people are like, they're not dropping it fast enough. And I'm like, you have too much time on your hands. That's what the problem is.
Have some kids and then you'll think it's
there you go.
Going like lightning.
There goes all your time.
Yeah, for real. Yeah. Okay, so there's one more thing I didn't like about Rebirth, and I didn't like this about Remake either. And you probably did not even have to go through this. But the thing I disliked the most in Chapter 2 of Rebirth is the character Kyrie.
Kyrie doesn't work for free or cheap.
Do you remember Kyrie?
No.
Okay, so Kyrie has like the kind of black and gray long stockings and like the hat that's like a 2010 trendy hat on her head, and she's got long dark hair. She is in Remake, and I can't remember what she does. She does something annoying in Remake.
Oh, is she the one that stole that thing and then ran into the church?
Yes.
Yes, I know who that is.
That's her. Okay.
She's a thief.
So Kyrie is in a side quest in Chapter 2. She is the worst.
You shouldn't underestimate an Undercity girl.
Like, I cannot stand her.
Oh, yeah. Even in Remake, I was like, this individual in the real world would have had her throat slit and been left in a ditch somewhere.
Everybody would just beat her up. Like, I'd see her and I'd beat her
up. The fact that she got away with what she did. And then the fact that our party was like being nice to her because what did they need from her? I don't know if it was a key or a materia or something.
Something like
and
that
that
she stole. And she's like,
oh, yeah, I did do that. Good times, good times.
Okay, so she's supposed to be an annoying character, so they're doing their job in a way. I cannot stand her voice acting, right? And I can't stand her personality. The music that accompanies her in Chapter 2 is by far the worst music in the chapter.
Great mercenary union.
Forget our deal already?
Come on, fellow merc.
Like, it's just garbage. Like, she was annoying in Remake, and she's annoying in Rebirth, right? And I know that that's kind of the point with her.
It's on purpose, yeah.
Yeah, like, Cloud is also annoyed with her, and he expresses that throughout the game, but she's like nails on a chalkboard to me more than she is to Cloud. Like, I cannot handle her. And I think, okay, when it comes to her voice acting, so I'm not going to blame the voice actor. I just think that they should have made her voice less of a cartoon. Like, okay, there's a couple different categories, voice actors, and there's some in between in Rebirth. And that's like the more realistic sounding, who just talk conversationally like a human, like Cloud.
And that's the last thing I remember.
Even Barret is more realistic, even though he's like really intense.
No amount of guesswork will get us any closer to the truth.
He's not like a cartoon, right?
I mean, he's a military dude. Like, that's, yeah.
Yeah, so he's like an intense, but he still talks like a normal human.
Well, what's bothering me is all this Genova stuff.
If I had a friend like that, it wouldn't be totally weird. It'd be big, but it'd be not weird.
The news outlets are nothing but Shinra mouthpieces spewing propaganda.
But then there's this cartoony voice category where people talk in these like super weird voices that nobody talks like that.
Holy mother of scrap metal!
I know what you're saying. It's like this stereotypical anime, high-pitched girl. Yes.
And that's why I tend to dislike the female casting more than the male casting, is because they tend to do this with a lot of the females in these Japanese voiced first and then English second games.
Yeah, so the females are doing that and the males are just grunting the whole time.
Right. But they're not grunting as much in this game.
That's true. That's true.
In Remake, there was so much grunting. They took it back a little bit in this one. I think they read the room and realized that they needed to remove it.
For sure. It's like half your cast sounds like they're on the toilet. Like, you need to fix, you know, like, I get it. There's a little bit of like that nostalgic thing in there, but just tone it down a little.
Just tone it down. It's over the top.
Yeah.
But when it comes to Kyrie, so she has one of these cartoony type of voices. Now, if she had not had a cartoony voice, she would still have been annoying to me as intended, but not to the point where she actually like detracted from the quality of the game. Like, I cannot handle her. And I know that a cartoony voice is a style choice, and the actress doesn't suck in that regard because it's clear that a cartoon is what she was instructed to emulate, you know, that kind of style. I just don't like that style. It's not my style. Like, instead of like a cartoony...
Wouldn't it be fun if we looked for them together?
Why don't you just like say something normal like, wouldn't it be fun if we looked for them together? Like, why does it have to be this like total weird cartoon? You can be annoying and still talk like a regular human. Anyway, there's a few cartoony characters. Yuffie is actually kind of cartoonish.
The one and only Yuffie!
She's growing on me because the voice actor is talented.
All right, Shinra. Time to pay.
She's just in the cartoon bucket, and the cartoon bucket and I don't always get along, right? Female Chadley is the same way.
Only a true hero could ever have defeated such a malevolent evil.
I tend to gravitate more toward like Cloud. I really like Big's style of acting, you know.
Tomorrow's a really big day for all of us.
It's just one of those things. It's a matter of preference for me, which is another reason why I hate when adults voice children characters, because it seems so fake to me and it's totally distracting, takes me right out of the story.
I'm Sephiroth!
But yeah, so no offense to this actor here. She's doing her job. It's just not my style. And that's not her fault. That's the casting fault, the directing fault.
I mean, but there is a difference too over time. Like, I know, like, I'm probably going to get flamed for this, but like, I don't like modern anime. I watched a little bit of it in the 80s when I was a little kid, and like we were literally getting like English dubbed imports from Japan.
Yeah.
They didn't have those kind of voices back then, at least from what I can remember. It came sometime after that. And I know exactly what you're talking about.
Just like that mousy.
Yeah, it just doesn't.
Unrealistic voice. Nobody talks like that.
Yeah, I don't like it either. But I realize it's like.
It's stylistic.
It's a trope thing, right?
Yeah.
Which is great. But like, yeah, like you said, like tone it down a little bit.
It just doesn't work.
Yeah, that character's super annoying. Even in Remake, I was like, man.
I mean, they even made her music suck. Like, it was so.
There were several times when.
And she shows up repeatedly.
I kept trying to take the Buster Sword out and hit her with it.
Totally.
That's another thing that would be great, by the way, for the developers to do is like these annoying characters, put them in Chadley's simulator and let us take them down.
There you go. That's a great idea. I am in favor of that.
That would be awesome. But like, yeah, I know exactly who you're talking about. What do you call those people that like buy thrift store clothes and they'll wear like eyeglasses that don't even have like
lenses in them?
And they'll wear like the weird clothes. Like, what are they called? Hipsters.
She's hipster. She's like somebody who would carry a Jack Skellington backpack if it wasn't copyright IP. Yeah,
she's like what's that store? Is it Hot Topic or?
Yeah, Hot Topic.
In Final Fantasy VII, right? Which again is like whatever.
And she's obnoxious in Remake too.
And she was telling the lies.
Yeah, she's the worst.
Oh God, yes.
So she's supposed to be annoying, and she's in this game too if you choose to meet her. If you just do streamlined main story, you'll see her.
Yeah, I wouldn't choose to meet her, but if I ran across her, okay, whatever.
But she's anyway. But that's my list of things I didn't like about chapter 2. It's actually pretty mild, I think. The worst part was Kyrie. One last point, I do want to say that the music in Rebirth in chapter 2 was amazing. No shock. I mean, you're just walking through grass and you're hearing full orchestration. I mean, aside from Kyrie's little song that drove me crazy. The
Chocobo music was good.
The Chocobo music's great. It proves how much money went into this game's production, right? I mean, these are full orchestrations and they're impressive.
Tower activation confirmed. Initiating preliminary scan of the Grasslands. I'll ascertain the locations of fiends and natural resources.
And they did such justice to Nobuo Uematsu's original tracks while also adding newness and freshness to them.
arcane's completely sold out? Lame.
To me, music is aced in every Final Fantasy. Aside from a couple tracks that, in future chapters, I've got a few things to say.
Yeah, there's a few weird ones here that, you know what I didn't pay attention to though, and maybe you did, is the fight music. Like I was watching a YouTube video of a guy who was like, I don't remember if it was 16 or 7 Remake at this point, but he was pointing out how like for like a good portion of the early part of that either game or chapter, they weren't giving you like the full, they were only giving you like snippets of it.
Well, they do that on purpose because it builds over time.
Yeah, and then at a certain like boss fight, they just let it rip.
Yeah.
Remember if in 2, like if they did the same thing to us all the way until we got to the Midgardsormr, or if it was one of those things where like we had it from the get-go.
I'll have to look back. I'm sure there's a major crescendo in tone for the Midgardsormr fight versus like fighting the little, what did you call the onion things?
The Mandrogoras.
Yes.
That'll do. Yeah, those are iconic to
Final Fantasies, yeah.
But like in 11, those things were like notorious because they have super high evasion.
Oh, okay.
And they can hit you multiple times. Like they're not particularly strong.
Just annoying.
But they're hard to hit and they hit you a bunch of times.
Ugh.
And so every time you got in a fight with one of those, like if you didn't outclass it significantly, it was a hard, tough fight.
Ugh.
They were so annoying.
Yeah, well, they're back.
Square just loves to torture us. That's what this is. It's like, I know I've said this a million times, but like they want us to pay, like not just the $99 to get the Steelbook version of this thing, but like to pay emotionally to play this game. Yeah.
Oh, you might be right. Yeah. So, I mean, I'll just conclude by saying that overall, I really enjoyed chapter 2. I was smiling ear to ear, exploring the grasslands. I loved Kalm. It just made me all the more excited, all of it, to play the rest of the game. And I remember telling my husband as I was playing chapter 2 and walking through the grasslands that the game was just really good. So it made a really good impression on me right up front just based on this chapter alone.
Yeah, same here. And it wasn't even the game at large. It was the Queen's Blood that got me, right? Like
Queen's Blood is fun.
That's what got me in chapter 2. And I was shocked. But yes, 2 was great. However, I will say that like now that I've played 3 and I'm like sitting at the beginning of 4, I enjoyed 3 more than 2.
That's because you like linear.
That's probably because I like linear, but also like Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
But overall, I think 2 was solid. If I had to pick like one thing that was my favorite out of 2, it would obviously be Queen's Blood. But the second thing was that we got the Chocobos early this time.
That's true.
I don't like walking around on my 2 feet everywhere.
Oh, what do you think about... Okay. That's another question. I know I was going to come to the conclusion, but I did think of you. The controls for the Chocobos in Final Fantasy XVI were pretty rough.
They were terrible.
So how do you think that they did with Rebirth Chocobo controls?
They're better, but I still don't think they're right. And here's the thing. I don't think it's necessarily just the Chocobos. I think it actually has to do with like, maybe it's like the hitbox or whatever stuff. Like,
okay.
Because the other place where it really annoys me is like, you know how they have like the bench next to the vending machine, next to the
like folio, whatever.
If you don't angle your character exactly right.
Oh, that's so true.
You pick the wrong one. And then the other thing is if you walk too close, the triangle disappears.
That's so true. And I did notice that. You mentioned that in our discussion about the demo, and I didn't know what you were talking about. It is a thing.
That is just poor coding. There's no way around that. Like, and I realized that could be a limitation of the game engine itself. I don't know whether they're using Unity or that other piece of junk or whatever. I don't know. But like,
but at least they don't make you select the Chocobo when you call them. You just whistle, they show up.
Yes, that is better.
You just hop on it.
And
like picking up items, you don't have to bend down and pick up the item. Like it just grabs them super fast. I think those mechanics are really nice.
But here's the one thing that I did find happened to me a couple of times with that like auto jump on mechanic, which is if you get yourself like in just the right angle and like you dismount the Chocobo, but it's still standing there and like you're trying to get to something,
you
automatically mount it.
Right.
Instead of
you
being
can
able
dismiss it. There's a dismiss command. I just don't remember what it is.
Yeah, I didn't figure out what that was either. And so all I did was I literally just walked away and then walked back so that the bird was behind me. So that I could get whatever was there. And it's
they
like
also block your way too if your party's on them and you're trying to get like through a specific place, like you can't do it.
Clearly, like the detection mechanics or whatever are still not right in this game. And I don't want to make it sound like it's terrible, but it's
better than 16 controls.
It's better than 16, right? And it's marginally better than 7 Remake, but it's still not right. And it's like, as someone who, deals a little bit in code, I would not have released this game in this state. But I realized that it's possible that it's just like a limitation of the game engine they're using. And so there's nothing they can actually do about it. That could be the case. But I'm glad that at least we got the Chocobos. I'm glad that they gave us that.
A lot of good stuff in this chapter and more to come. And we'll talk about it, of course, in upcoming discussions. And that's going to do it for this episode of the Final Fantasy Files. We can be found anywhere you get your podcasts, and you can actually see the video version if you're not watching it already, either on Spotify or on YouTube. And you can follow us on our new dedicated YouTube channel, Final Fantasy Files, which I was happy to see this. I know this is kind of small potatoes for some people, but we were able to get 300 subscribers in just 1 month, right after launch. So that was pretty cool. And the community has had a ton of awesome comments on some of these clips that we've been playing. So thank you, community. And if you'd like to join us, please subscribe. Smash that subscribe button. What are all the things you say?
Like the button, subscribe. And the more important one, though, is to share this with a friend. So if you happen to have a friend who likes Final Fantasy, JRPGs in general, or just two co-hosts that tear games to pieces, you should share this with them, and then maybe they'll like it and they can share it with their friends and stuff like that. And if you happen to know any other Final Fantasy content creators that you think would like to engage with us, we're happy to do that as well, because we love to build a larger community around this franchise in general.
For sure. And we'll also be having a lot more discussions about Rebirth as we go through these further chapters. So join us on that journey, if you will. And with that, walk tall, my friends.
And may the flames of the Phoenix draw the Queen's blood from your troubled little hearts.
Nice! Incorporating Queen's blood.